Hi, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Code Strategic Project Management and Soft Skills for Cybersecurity Success. My name is Tiffany Portis. I'll be walking you through this talk, talking about how technical expertise, of course, is really important in the cybersecurity world, but going through projects and seeing successes and failures, a lot of that can really come through with the underrated part of project management and some of the critical soft skills that I've seen teams deliver, and showing the difference between exceptional projects and just ordinary run of the mill programs. So, we're going to talk about structured and repeatable processes that you should engage and take notice of. We will also speak about strategic communication and adapting your leadership style so that you can see those successes, and how that's helped me as I've specialized in project and program management in the cybersecurity world. So let's go ahead and get started. The agenda, we'll just walk through all of those high points. I will call out that we'll talk mostly about processes, soft skills, documentation, and then a little bit of the case study side of it. So let's go ahead and dive into the power of process. Um, for me, I've seen the establishment of repeatable processes really make the difference between successful and mature teams versus teams that are just starting out, or teams that take a little bit longer in order to work together and really see success through their planning and beyond creating technical solutions. Really, what's the difference between projects that go smoothly and ones that are a little bit rougher and to deal with? So that repeatable process, I think it's important to establish yourself. So whether it's based on any sort of methodology, that could be SDLC, it could be some sort of agile, waterfall, whatever methodology you start out with, there are a lot of things that are very much the same in between all of them. So understanding that there's those stages like initiation, stages that include testing and, of course, implementation. But how do you actually walk through and apply those into your real day to day life? It's really, how do you work with teams? How do you learn and apply those effective communication habits with your stakeholders? So I look at it as creating predictability. Once you figured out those methods, the preferences, the likes, the dislikes, you are starting to create this expectation. It creates also the reputation that, okay, when I'm working with the cybersecurity team, I know I'm going to get a solid solution. I'm going to get communication. I'm going to get the documentation. I'm going to understand the plan holistically, and really, you start to see that degree of your success get higher and higher because you build on top of those processes that you've already created. And I'll emphasize that it's not just the processes that you've created and you've seen, but also the processes that you've seen other folks do. You can think of an example of probably the last time you had to do an IT update and when those went well and when those didn't go so well. What was the difference between when it went well and when it didn't go so well? You can see that in projects across the board, whether it's an HR project, a cybersecurity project, something very technical. But I want you to start to find those examples of when you've seen those go well and when they haven't gone so well. So we'll move on and talk a little bit about documentation. Documentation really as a foundation for your success. So I've called out a few instances of where I've seen that really make the difference in a program team. So let's start with meeting agendas. I know meetings can be so polarizing, because you've been in a ton of meetings, and I know you've been in a ton of bad meetings. So what's the difference in between a good one and a bad one? So for me, setting that clear expectation of what is this meeting about? What am I hoping to accomplish? And what are we leaving here with? That's my number one factor. So in that meeting invite, it literally says what the goal is and what you're going to accomplish. If you know how you're going to contribute, you can show up prepared. I'll also segue that into number two, which is technical pre reads. So, how do you ensure that folks are showing up informed to have the right decisions or the right discussions? So, if that means that they need to do some sort of research, they need to read a spec doc, they need to collaborate and get something prepared, that's something that should be available within your meeting agenda, linked and very easy to access. So my third one here is meetings and recaps. You can see that right behind me in the deck here. Um, Meetings and recaps, I think, are extremely important. Not so that you can, scribe everything that's said in a meeting. You really are looking to capture the decisions that are made and then also the top action items and who's going to move them forward. If anything, you just need that checklist to really show what was effective and what was good about that call. Um, We'll also really quickly talk about scope and spec and design documents. So, just as important as the soft side of just having that checklist, what are the bigger overarching things that everyone needs to be aware of? What exactly are we committing to? What's within the scope of the program or that project? And does everyone have a good understanding of how that's going to be moved forward, whether it's using specific tools, specific resources in order to create that. They should have that well documented um, and the strategies that are going to be employed in order to create that solution. So, always having that linked in your meeting documentation and artifacts, always having those available is extremely important, and making sure that they're accessible to your teammates. So the next thing that I call out is user communication. So something that can go by the wayside is just how are we actually delivering this to our end users? So I work with a lot of technical teams, teams that are going to create features, functionalities that may change the way that someone's able to interact and do their work. And so it's very important to not only understand what types of security controls are we looking to enable? What types of legislation or rules are we looking to be compliant with? But how are we also affecting a day to day business user? Are we changing the way that they are able to come into the building? Are we changing the way that they're able to verify their identification or validate their ID? Is it clear and documented the steps that they need in order to follow this new process? And is it also clear how do they get support and help if they run into an issue or have questions? So I like to engage. I like to engage the idea of, okay, if that worked out great last time, how can I improve it and how can I turn that into a template so that you can continue to build on that expectation? If folks are always getting bombarded with communications or messages about changes in the environment, how do I make sure that when they see that it's a cybersecurity or an infosec communication, that they know that it's going to be a good one? Um, that's always, the goal that's in the back of my head. So, um, also, a part of that is ensuring that you have those support artifacts. So, support artifacts could just be things that an end user can access after the implementation is complete, or if your team is closer to an implementation team and say they do the implementation and then they move on to their next body of work, who's supporting that and how do they have insight into the work that your team created, and how do they have understanding of the decisions that were made or the configurations that were chosen? You want all of that information available so that it can really help someone with stepping into the role of understanding your work. So I know that all of that can help with, and I've seen that helping with clarity, and really helping with the alignment of a larger team and not just a core team. Okay, so I have some examples here of ways that I have seen soft skills really elevate a team. So I've highlighted communication, leadership, and um, culture building, mostly because I think that those are some of the most influential, or at least the most impactful skills that you can find yourself improving just immediately. So let's start with effective communication. I have a photo here of a friend from the movie Office Space. You If you haven't seen that, you probably should. It's a great example of poor communication and how that really can affect not only the specific audience, but also your greater team and the lack of um, understanding that can drive. So emphasizing that you have that clear and concise communication. Um, I think it's a strategy. You have to make time for creating communication strategies. And so that really just involves talking about, documenting how are you going to communicate, when are you going to communicate, and who are these audiences. So understanding, like I've mentioned before, not only your technical audiences, so product managers, um, folks that are working on your infrastructure, but also working with people that are going to be affected your by your work. So that could be, an HR team, a customer service person, an accountant. Who are those non-technical audiences? What are they doing every day? And how does this affect their ability to do their work and access their systems? I'll go ahead and talk about flexible leadership. So, not only is having your own style of leadership extremely important, it's also important to understand that you will have to flex that leadership style. So, it doesn't matter if you're an extrovert, an introvert, if you are someone that loves to, be in person with folks, or you do better with one on ones and remote calls. There's going to be times where you have to put in the effort to understand how do I flex my leadership style, especially with different types of teams, and of course, different situations. So, if you're mindful of it ahead of time, knowing that brute force may not always be the best way, then I think you're going to find yourself ahead, because you can absorb, you can do what most people say, which is read the room. See how people interact with each other, really observe people from not only your management level, but above your management level, lower than your management level. How do they communicate with each other? Is it casual? Are they always hanging out in the break room together? Do they prefer getting emails? Do they prefer getting Slack messages? um, it's something that's both a combination of observing what's around you and what's working out well, and seeing how you can make changes, or at least slight micro changes, to get to a closer get to a closer end product that you're looking for. The last thing that I want to highlight is just building a culture. So I do think it's important for you as a leader, whether you're an engineer watching this and you want to improve your project management skill, or if you are a program project manager yourself, how do you build this culture that's more of respect and mutual benefit for folks? So it's really something that you have to build over time. So, trust can be, has to be built, but it can also be lost very quickly. So, really reaching out and understanding folks where they are, where their skill set is, what their likes, their dislikes are, understanding the environment that you're in. That really does take the people management side of it. And you have to be a part of what's going on around you. You can't dictate how things are going to go. So, just being mindful of creating that culture where people can be open in your meetings, they can understand what their role is and what they're expected to do, and also that they can come to you with their issues and knowing that they're going to be heard and supported by you. So I do want to share a couple of examples that would wrap and build up all of those things that I just spoke to you about. So, really understanding how I've used those soft skills and some of those core project management skills to create success and really build a culture and expectation with folks. So, some of those key things that I've highlighted are a detailed project plan, a very thorough communication plan, and also those meeting minutes and action items that are shared after I have those formal or informal meetings with people. So, a formal document, of course, is a project plan that walks through all of the technical specs and the placement of them over a timeline. There's a ton of examples out there that really highlight, using the best of your project management ability and creating project plans. But those plans are going to be extremely detailed. They're going to be broken down from the highest level of, bucket of actions down to who's going to turn on the switch or who's going to review the final communication or who's going to actually create the documentation. So it's important to be extremely detailed in that type of project. And when I've seen project plans that are super high level, they're almost they're almost as useless as just not having one. No one references them. No one looks at them. When you look back at them 2 months after a project, you don't learn anything from that. So it's beneficial to spend time on a detailed plan. When it comes to communication plans, what I ensure is that it not only highlights what types of communications will go out, but we really clarify the methodology. So, is this going to be sent via email? Is this going to be a weekly message from the project manager? We're talking about the frequency that someone can expect it. We're also going to highlight who the senders or receivers will be so that it's clear if it's going to a distribution list or if it's going to a certain job type, a job function. It's very clear that we've been thoughtful and we've accounted for where things are going to go and who should receive them. I also think it's super important. So, for your meeting minutes or your recaps that you're sharing with folks, um, you just want to make sure that you capture those high level actions and that something that's helped me out is say you have a large group of people joining and a couple of folks don't make it. Well, it's good to highlight who was actually in the meeting so it's clear someone was able to voice their opinion or agree to what was decided. So sometimes I'll actually do that by putting the folks that didn't attend into the CC line of an email. But overall, making sure that you are accounting for your stakeholders. You have due dates, you have expected dates, you have links to other ticketing systems. So things like Jira or Zendesk, for example. Making sure that you can see the end-to-end picture from not only that specific document, but how does it tie into the entire, universe that you're creating here. At the very bottom, I just have an example of something that I have done in the past, which is um, really simply outlined a list of the dates that we were looking to meet for a stakeholder timeline. Who's sending it. So I have both the executive communication listed there, the all company communication, and then clearly, what's the go live, what date, what time can we expect to see that happen. So very, very simple, a very simple checklist with a lot of very powerful information. So I want to wrap that up and just say I hope that you've seen the reinforcement of some of those important project management and soft skills. And those are some of the things that really have backed me up, regardless of the technology that I've worked on. And I really want to encourage you to apply a lot of those principles into the templates that you're creating or start to create those templates, whether you're a technical resource or a project manager or a leader. Um, And just know that those are things that have differentiated those top performers and those folks that are looked at as strategic leaders, because they are the type of person that's creating and proposing solutions and then actually seeing them through. You can contact me at my LinkedIn profile. You can just send a question there or email me. I've been in the project management field for my entire career and really have been specializing in infosec and cybersecurity over the last 10 years. So I'm happy to help anyone that's interested in developing those skill sets as a technical resource or as a project leader. And I just want to say thank you to SecJuice for having me. Have a great rest of the conference, guys. Bye.